Hello, hello. Nicole Jones here, Bankroll Your Brains expert and the CEO of NRJ Enterprises. And welcome to Monetize Your Speaking. So I'm going to shift over to my slides because I have so much to teach you and I don't want you to miss a thing. All right, so again, welcome. So in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to teach you everything I possibly can to create multiple streams of revenue with your speaking, right? But my first question to you out of the gate is, are you a speaker or do you have a speaking business? See, being a speaker means that you just take 40 minutes and 60 minutes keynote workshop, right? But can I tell you that people need more than that hour or less with you? That if you're going to affect real transformation, people will need more, and that more should be your speaking business. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Now, before I go in, let me just tell you, you'll hear my clicker clicking. You'll see me look down at my slides because I want to make sure that I give you everything I can in the next 20 minutes, okay? So first, you've got to know that I've been a speaker for over 27 years. Yes, over 27, even though I'm only 28, right? So, of course, I'm going to share with you what I've learned in my own journey from moving from just a speaker to actually creating multiple streams of income from having a speaking business, right? And so literally, some 17 years in, so again, I started in this journey in 1993. So some 17 years in, I had a nonprofit when I first started, which worked with African-American teenage girls. And then I had a for-profit. So in that for-profit, I coached women to grow or start businesses, right? And so in my nonprofit, I had 10 chapters in 10 states, and we were growing by leaps and bounds. This was in 2010, right? In my for-profit, my coaching practice, I had a full coaching client roster, meaning I couldn't take another client. How many of you guys want that? You want to have clients, right? Whether you're a coach or consultant, right? So in 2010, I wrote my first book. By the way, that's my fourth book. So in 2010, I wrote my first book because I thought, I can still give my principles to women that I can't take as a client. But literally, I could also raise money for my nonprofit with that book. Well, when that book came out, I started getting invitations to speak all over the country. So every single weekend, I was either at some entrepreneurial symposium or women's empowerment event, and can I tell you, I loved every minute of it. I had gotten my business to the place that I dreamed of when I started it in 1993. But I want you to get this. I was only making $13,000 a year in my business. And that is not a typo. And that's less than the poverty level. And so I didn't start my business in 1993 to be broke, right? Now, of course, I had a daytime job to pay for my nighttime calling. And I remember this like it was yesterday. It was the first Sunday of November in 2010. Matter of fact, it was November 7th. I said that at an event once, and a woman had me look up the date, right? Well, she walked up to me and said, I looked up the date for you. It was November 7th, 2010, and I had just gotten home from another speaking business or speaking event. And my daytime job I was an adjunct professor. And listen, I hadn't even looked at my syllabus. I didn't know what I told my students to read, let alone have lecture notes. And I was just tired. I was worn out. And I thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. And so I prayed, Lord, if this is really what I'm meant to do, if this is really my purpose, I need you to show me something. And I pray to God just the same way I talk. And so literally in that next week, I got invited to a free event like this one. And I didn't realize it was going to be my transformation. So I went to that event. At that event, it invited me to go to a conference. I paid for the conference. Now listen, I live in Boston. The conference was in California. The conference was $500. My plane ticket was $500, and staying in the hotel by myself was another at least $1,000. Could I afford it? No, but I couldn't afford not to do it. And at that event, I met my first coach. See, why I did all that is I realized I had taken myself as far as I could take myself. See, up until that point, I was only doing what I knew to do, right? I realized at that moment I would have to invest at the level to which I wanted to see the return. And can I be honest with you? You can either put sweat equity in your business or cash equity. Up until that point, I had only been putting sweat equity. I kept thinking I'm going to work another day. I'm going to work another couple hours. That wasn't working. So when I hired my coach, which by the way, she cost $30,000 and I was only making $13,000 in my business. Again, I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford not to do it. I realized I had to risk it all to gain it all, right? And so when my coach showed me in my first coaching call, she showed me. She said, Nicole, didn't you tell me you're an adjunct professor, that you taught at USC? I'm from California, by the way. You taught at USC for almost 5 years. And now you're in Boston and you teach at Boston University. And what you teach is program development. And I thought, yeah, all excited, right? And so the next thing she said was, and didn't you used to have a consulting practice when you lived in LA? And you worked with heads of state, you've worked with celebrities, you've worked with nonprofits, you've worked with small businesses. And what you did was build programs in their businesses. And I was like, yeah. And so the next thing my coach said didn't just change my business, it changed my life. She said, Nicole, you don't have any programs in your own business. Duh. See, up until that point, you guys, up until that point, I was relying on speaking gigs to pay me. By the way, I only have 5 coaching clients because that's the only time, all the time I had with a alongside job, a full-time job. And by the way, I taught at 2 universities back then and growing my business, right? And so what I realized is in that moment, the difference between being a speaker and having a speaking business. So that night, I wrote my first program. That first program generated $10,000 in a day. I went overnight, by the way, and doing this and sitting with all the ways I've been working with clients and all the ways I'd used in my classes as a university professor, my Fierce Formula was born. And from that formula, I began to create program after program. I literally went from $13,000 to over $200,000 within that year. And my company has grown by leaps and bounds since then, right? So I'm going to walk you through the 3 things that helped me back and the 3 things that will help you grow your speaking into a speaking business. But before I do that, because I'm going to go really fast, I'm gifting you a book. So anything you might miss because I'm going fast, grab the book, monetizeyourspeakingbook.com. It's going to walk you through in much more detail than I'm going to walk through the 3 things that you've got to do in order to grow your speaking into a speaking business. All right, you ready? All right, again, monetizeyourspeakingbook.com, okay? So, and this walks you through 15 ways to generate revenue from speaking. Good stuff. Make sure you get it. All right. So with that said, I'm going to walk through 3 strategies to build a successful speaking business. 1, you got to package your brilliance as the answer. Number 2, you got to stand out in a crowded market. And 3, build multiple streams of revenue. So let's go in. You ready? Got a pen? All right. So with that said, number 1, package your brilliance as the answer. Can I tell you it's not about you? See, let me say this to you. In a speaking gig, whether it's a workshop or a keynote, you have 45 to 60 minutes typically. There's no way you can give people all the transformation they need. And to be honest with you, you're doing a disservice if you don't invite them into other ways to work with you to continue the work. Now, everybody won't want to work with you, and that's great. And we'll talk about that in step 2 in a second. But what you have to know is that you have the very thing somebody wants or needs. Somebody's been praying for the gift in you, and you're holding up someone's answered prayer when you don't invite them into other ways to work with you, right? And so literally what I call this is your fierce. And my book is called Find Your Fierce. Those of you that have been around me, you've heard me talk about fierce. Y'all know who Beyonce is. Remember, she's called herself Sasha Fierce. See, she called herself Sasha Fierce when she was leaving Destiny's Child. She had to stand on stage alone and stand in the full power of her gift. And many of you, the reason that you haven't built your speaking into a speaking business is you don't realize the gift that's inside of you. And you don't realize the very thing that you are the answer to, right? You don't realize what that is. So you have to know that people will pay you more for what you know than what you do. Have you ever heard the quote, master, you are the, oh, it just went out of my head. I feel like my mother right now. You are it'll come back around, right? It'll come back around. I can't think of the quote I'm trying to think of. But literally, when you don't take the time to really get clear on the one thing that you are, and you're trying to be everything to everybody, you'll be nothing to no one, right? So with that said, my problem when my business was failing is I wasn't standing in the full power of my brilliance. I didn't know how to package it. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't have programs around it, right? And so really, why I'm sharing this with you is it's time for you to get committed to being the answer as you speak. To not just doing a speaking gig, but having a speaking business so you can help people really transform their lives. Here's a quote I can think of. You're the master of multiple things. And when you do that, you're the master of none. And you've heard that, right? I still didn't say the quote right, but you know exactly the quote I'm talking about. Somebody post it, send me a text and tell me, right? Post it on social media. I don't know why I can't think of it all. Oh, jack of all trades, there it is. I say it all the time. You're the jack of all trades and master of none. So when you're trying to do too many things and you're not focused on the one thing that you've been called to do, the one gift that you have inside of you, the DNA, the distinct natural ability that allows you to stand in it, and you don't package it and begin to serve people from it, then you're not clear. And when you're not clear, you're holding up people's transformation. Anyway, I can go on and on about that. So you've got to be clear that you are the answer. And just saying I'm a speaker about what? I'll have a book about what? And when you write a book of poems, I'm not dissing a book of poems, but it's got to lead to some certain transformation. One thing, all roads should lead to the same transformation. When you're trying to do too many things, people are confused, and a confused mind doesn't buy. I'll talk to you about that in number 3. Number 2, stand out in a crowded market. This is how you start to stand out. Think about anybody you greatly admire. Oprah. Why does Oprah stand out? She had a show for 25 years. And on that show, she did what? One of my favorite people is Cynthia Marshall, who is the CEO of Dallas Mavericks. You know why the owner of Dallas Mavericks went to her when he was having a problem with his team? Because she had that one thing that made her stand out above all the rest of the people that could help him. And it was her human resource experience. It's the way she connected people. It's the way she really helped people feel connected and needed. And he needed that in the midst of all the chaos that was happening. Do you guys remember that? Go Google it if you don't. And so how do you stand out? Again, it's based on that one thing, that brilliance, that you are the answer to a group of people, but you standing in it begins to allow you to stand out in a crowded market. So what's your why? What is your brilliance, and how does it answer a need, and how does that set you apart? I call this your unique serving position, because that's literally, that's how you should always position yourself. And so you should position yourself as the answer. So this a minute ago, right? So what you want to look at is how these connect. Anytime you're speaking, how do these connect? How do people see you as the answer as you're speaking? So it's not just talking about whatever, whenever, however. There needs to be a result that you're speaking to, so people see what's possible for them. So people see the transformation that can occur. See, I said this a minute ago. You can't be everything to everybody, but you can be something to somebody. I have some on there twice. Somebody, right? And literally, when you're trying to do everything and touch everybody in the room, you touch nobody because you're too vague. But understand there's a group of people that resonate with you. I remember I was invited to speak at church. It nerves me to say preach. And when I stood in the pulpit, all of a sudden this came out of my mouth before I could even speak, before I went into my little sermon. I said, some of you realize that you were assigned to me before I even stood in this pulpit. So by the way, I teach the same thing, whether I'm in a pulpit, whether I'm on a stage, whether I'm on a webinar like this, whether I'm on a podcast, whether I'm on a TV media appearance. I'm teaching my one from my brilliance, because I'm not everything to everybody, but I am something to somebody the same way you are. The question is, do you know it? The bottom line is this: the reason that speakers succeed is they're clear on their brilliance and allow their brilliance to be seen and heard as the answer. And when people can see you as the answer, guess what they'll do? They will pay you. And so how do you do this? It's using your one thing to be your blueprint. See, just like you do for a house, you need a blueprint that shows people what they're being built to. And many of you don't have this in your business, right? So think about what a blueprint is, right? So I just finished redoing the house that I grew up in. And if I would have gone to Home Depot or Lowe's and said, listen, I want the state of the art walls, right? And then I put those walls on my 1934 roof. Then when an earthquake came, because my house is in California, right? And even my foundation was bad. Do you know when they gutted my house, my foundation was bad, so they had to redo it all. But guess what? When they redid everything, they redid it by a blueprint. So a blueprint literally allows you to see what the beginning, the middle, and the end is going to be. It allows people to see the predictable result you can get them to. The problem is I find so many speakers I call having Milli Vanilli syndrome. Y'all know, if you don't know who Milli Vanilli is, please don't make me feel old. Please go look up Milli Vanilli. So you start doing stuff because somebody else is doing it. Like, ooh, you know, Alan Van Zandt is doing this. Let me do it like that. Or, ooh, Tony Robbins is doing it like this. Let me do it like that. Or, ooh, Les Brown is doing it like this. So let me do it like that. And while other successful people leave clues, what happens is when you just do what other people do, you end up lip syncing on their track. Or if you work with a coach that gives you a script and leaves out your brilliance, your one thing that leaves out your secret sauce, yeah, you're lip syncing on somebody else's track, right? So the problem is when you do that, you leave out your blueprint. And again, it's not about you. So how does someone see you as a need, as the answer to their need, if they can't see your brilliance? So I'm trying to see how much time I have left, right? If they can't see the brilliance that's inside of you. So you've got to be clear and be committed to make a blueprint. Again, your blueprint is your step-by-step method. So in my business, I have a 6-step blueprint. Depending on where you are in your business, you might be in my first step, you might be in my 4th step. And I speak to you from that so that I can assess where you are and tell you what's next. And I'm clear on how I move you through the trajectory of getting paid for what you know. I'm only sharing that with you because you have a blueprint in you as well. right? And so in order to stand out, you've got to become what your gift is, and you've got to create a blueprint from it, right? See, this is the recipe that makes up your secret sauce. I said this a minute ago. It fosters trust in your work because clients can see a predictable result. Instead of you saying, oh, I'm gonna coach you, you can say, we're gonna do 3 things. We're gonna do, and here are the 3 things we're gonna do. Does that make sense? Now, quickly, let me walk you through multiple streams of revenue, because all of this leads to you having multiple streams of revenue. Now, listen, most businesses run on a one-to-one model, which is what my problem was. Is the reason I wasn't making any money is all I had available was coaching. And if I have a full-time job I'm working while I'm building my speaking business, that already caps off how much money I can make, right? See, what most billionaires don't tell you is they have multiple streams of income in their business. And so how do you build yours? First, you got to build it from a blueprint. And let me say this to you. What I learned in my business is that if I wanted something different, I had to do something different, which is what I learned from my coach, right? Now, one of my clients that I've had the pleasure to work with, Dr. Deborah Tillman, who is America's Super Nanny. Now, she had the opposite issue that I did. See, I wasn't making money. I didn't have any more hours in the day. She was making money, but she had so many parents that were coming to her that she just either they couldn't afford her or she couldn't take them because she too didn't have any more hours in her day. And so when I had the pleasure of meeting Deborah and beginning to coach her, I remember in our first coaching call, I said, oh, we need to create a blueprint. And so she said, now, Deborah Sweet, this is how I received it. She said, I create an organic experience every time I work with someone. And I said, okay, are you finished with that? Because see, what we don't realize is we have a methodology in us. If we could package that and begin to serve from that, you can serve more people. So I gave her homework, the same homework I give all my clients. She came back to our second call in tears because she did not realize that she had a methodology, that she had a blueprint. So we wrote the whole blueprint out. From that blueprint, she created, and her blueprint became the Greater Parenting System, GPS. So now she has GPS online, she has GPS group programs, and does that help her make more money? Yes. But here's the thing. She wasn't concerned about leaving money on the table. She was concerned about leaving transformation behind, right? And so here's what this could look like for you. Now, before I show you this, how you can make multiple streams of income, just know these numbers are really low. So don't walk around talking about Nicole told me to charge this, because I did not. Everybody's business. Remember, I said this a few minutes ago. God didn't use a cookie cutter. So everybody's business is different. So what you would charge will be different. Okay. So let's say you had an audio series. You sold 240 in a year for $97, right? That would be 23,280. You can't see that number because my head is over it, right? If you had an online program meaning that someone's going through some of my online programs right now and I'm not there, I'm here with you. 100 in a year and 997. You see 99,000? You guys see that? You can read the rest of those, right? So literally, this is what it looks like when you have multiple revenue streams. A mastermind, a group program. Group is just one to many. So consultants, you could have a one to many program. You don't have to be a coach to have a group program. Okay, coaching, consulting. Again, these are all low bar numbers. If I did all of that in a year, I'd make $458,000. Hello, right? And so does that sound like something you could do, that you'd want to do? Mm-hmm. So a couple of examples as I wrap up. Had the pleasure of work with TJ, Media Maverick. People were coming to her with her 20 years of media experience and asking her how to get on TV. We created the Media Mavericks program, right? Power of Style, Stephanie Michelle. When I met her, Stephanie was a coach. She was coaching people, life coach, but she was leaving out her one thing, which is a stylist. Listen, once we got Stephanie clear on her brilliance, and she wasn't even styling people before that, mind you, her bank account was negative $200, her business bank account, when she met me. Her first year after we got clear, 500% her income grew. She put that percentage together, not me, right? So the bottom line is this. You got to stand in your brilliance as the need, but you got to be clear on what is exactly your brilliance. When people say I'm a health coach, that's not clear. When you say things like I am a image consultant, so even with Stephanie, there's something intrinsic, and she knows who her ideal client is, because it's not every woman, it's not every person. Once you get clear on that, then it's creating a blueprint from it. And then from that blueprint, you create multiple streams of income. Again, I went through everything really fast. Grab your book. One last thing I'm going to tell you, which is a number 4 step, is making money while you sleep, right? So the thing I love the best, and I use this example all the time, and I'm wrapping up, is that between November and Christmas, it was a few years ago. Now that's usually between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I said November, Christmas, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I went to Rome, Barcelona, Dallas, Denver, and Montego Bay, Jamaica. So I was not even at home, and my business generated $87,000 without me being present. That's what I mean by making money while you sleep. Matter of fact, I've had clients in Aruba and Singapore, all over the country. People going through my online programs. So literally, even Deborah Tillman, Dr. Deborah Tillman, that was what made the difference for her, was being able to serve parents online, because you can't listen, you can't clone yourself. You only have so many hours in a day. So again, hopefully what I've shared with you has really helped you move things forward. Hopefully in the last 20 minutes, you've gotten some good stuff to move your business from just being a speaker to being a speaker business. And what I want to leave you with is this: the tools you use on this level are not sufficient for the next level. And so in order to grow from just being a speaker to actually truly growing a 6-figure, 7-figure speaking business, you've got to get new tools. Hopefully today has given you some of that. Hopefully today you've gotten some great insight and some great new ways to think about, and grab that book so I can teach you even more. All right. So with that said, Nicole Roberts Jones, it's been my honor, and I'm out. Bye.